What's up, booktube? It's Leah Cooper, and today I'm bringing you a book review for Shielded by Kaylin Flanders. If you hear vacuuming noises in the background, I'm sorry. Someone spilled coffee in the kitchen just as I sat down to film this, and I need to get this filmed. Shielded is a YA fantasy novel. It was released about a week ago. I will leave a link in the description box to its Goodreads page, as well as like a buy link, probably from Amazon. So I received an art copy of this book in exchange for an honest review via Netgalley, and that's what this is. You know the drill. I haven't been paid for any of my opinions. They're 100% my own, and as always, I'm gonna tell you my honest to goodness thoughts about this book. Unfortunately, as with my last book review, this was disappointing. As far as I can tell on Goodreads, this is Kaylin Flanders' debut novel, and it is the start of what I'm gonna assume is a trilogy. It's at least the first book, but it feels like trilogy fodder. On Goodreads, it says it's for fans of Sorcery of Thorns and Furyborn. And I liked Sorcery of Thorns well enough. I haven't read Furyborn. So, this seemed like a pretty solid bet. Unfortunately, in all good consciousness, I can really only give this a 2 stars. Goodreads, I gave it a 2.5 and I rounded it up to 3. I think that might be a little bit over generous. I did read this and Unravel the Dusk pretty close together, and I'm very critical of Unravel the Dusk. I have a full review of it here, and I also only gave that book 2.5 stars. And so the fact that I'm giving this the same rating, like, I don't know how I feel about that, because this is a really rough book. Like, this is very clearly a debut novel, and not in a good way. I'll tell you briefly what it's about. It is about, I think they call it a plateau, but it's basically like another piece of continent or island that has 3 kingdoms on it. And one of the kingdoms was established by conquerors from across the sea who came to the island chasing the last remaining evil wizards that they had been at war with. And they brought sorcery or wizardry to this island. They were able to kind of defeat and exile the dark mages in the desert. I think there's a desert. And they established a kingdom to protect the rest of the plateau from sorcery, basically. And our protagonist is from that kingdom of protectors. She is the second in line. She has an older brother who's heir to the throne. The royal family is the only ones with magic, and the heir to the throne is the only one who's supposed to have magic. And they're denoted as having magic by having a white stripe in their hair. So her brother has it. He has healing magic, and he's the heir. And it's very taboo for another child in the royal line to have magic, because there was this coup attempt in a previous generation. If you're an heir and if you're also in the royal line and you have magic, it's bad for you, basically. So of course our protagonist has a white stripe in her hair, indicating she has some sort of magic, and she's been hiding it her entire life. Her mother is dead, her father's on the throne, and her brother is the only one who knows about her secret hair stripe. Okay. The book starts off with our protagonist finding out very abruptly that she's being shipped off to the next kingdom on the plateau as a royal marriage, because there's fighting or tension going on, and there's political upheaval, and her father needs guaranteed that he's going to have troop access. And so if he marries her to the prince of the neighboring kingdom, they have sworn to provide troops. And so she can't not agree. She has to go do it, even though she desperately doesn't want to, of course. So the other thing is, her brother is being sent on kind of a secret mission to go out to the front line and find out why there have been rumors of magic attacks, and to figure out what's happening. So he's going to go with his best friend, who's a soldier at arms, type guy, and they're going to escort the princess partway to her the neighboring kingdom, and then they're going to break off and like sneakily go investigate that. So the first large chunk of the book is the princess getting ready to leave, and then also her journey to the neighboring kingdom. And of course, there's an evil forest. And literally while I was reading this book, every time I was talking to my boyfriend about it. And every time I referred to this evil forest, I just called it Fangorn Forest, because that's what it is. It's Fangorn Forest, and from Lord of the Rings. And a big chunk of the first part of the novel is just her on this voyage to the neighboring kingdom. Of course, they're ambushed by dark wizards. Of course, everyone except the princess dies. Of course, she gets away, but she flees the path of safety and goes into the evil forest. So, man, this first section of the book was dry as paint. Like, I'm sorry, but it was boring. It was cliched and it was boring. The protagonist just isn't a very interesting character. She's very flat. She's very generic. She's very, like, I can't even say she's like every other protagonist, because, like, that's a disservice to all the other YA fantasy protagonists who are actually really interesting. And then also there's just like I said, this really strongly feels like a debut, because like the ideas and the world building in this don't feel particularly unique or original, and they feel like someone who really loves Lord of the Rings writing a fantasy novel. That's how it kind of feels. Maybe with some like Truthwitch thrown in. I haven't read Truthwitch. I've only read the first part of it, but there is certainly like it did give me those vibes. So yeah, it was dull. And then of course she makes it through the forest. She gets to the neighboring kingdom, but she has reason to suspect that the royal family of the neighboring kingdom is the one that attacked them or caused the attack on them. So now she's afraid and she wants to gather information. So of course she disguises herself as her maid, and she stumbles across like a village farmer and his wife, and they just take her in without any second guessing, and she's there for a couple of days, and then they help her. They're like, okay, so this is how you get to the main royal castle town. And she's going to the first village to try to hire a cart to take her there, and she runs into a dashing knight. Guess who that is? It's the prince, of course. So at this point in the book, it really was just like I was entertained a little bit, because it was so bad. It was kind of fun, but I could never forget that it was really bad and real cliche. And that was the rest of the book. Like, the rest of the book is just kind of, oh, of course she runs into the prince. Oh, of course she like gets into a fight with a mad wizard and sort of saves the prince's life. Oh, of course he brings her back to the castle. Oh, of course she's befriended by the prince's sister. Oh, of course the prince's sister asks her to be her guardian or like protector. Like, oh, of course. Like, it's one ridiculously cliched thing after another. None of it particularly well written, but just kind of dumb fun. So like, I was entertained by the end of it, but it wasn't a good kind of entertained. You know what I mean? And that's just kind of, those were my feelings kind of stepping away from this book. I feel like the author needs to write a few more books. She might improve, but at this stage, this felt like a first attempt at writing a fantasy novel, and it shows. So I wish I had enjoyed it more. I wish I could recommend it. I can't, though, because I do think that the first 150 pages are a real stumbling block. They're just real dry, and you're not rewarded for getting through them. That's like, the beginning was definitely too long. I think also you probably could have chopped out a solid 40 to 50 pages at the beginning just to like make this book slightly longer, because it's a bit long for how little happens in portions of it, and maybe just jumped into the ridiculousness a little bit faster, because I did kind of guilty pleasure, not guilty pleasure, well, kind of. I mean, I was kind of like guiltily entertained, sort of, in parts of the later half of the book. So maybe if the author jumped us a little bit sooner into those elements and then developed them more, it would have been okay. The villain is super cliche. You'll see it coming. That's all I can say. And then, yeah, like I said, there's gonna be sequels. I'm probably gonna give them a miss just because I'm not super into the protagonist. And I do think in one of these narratives, this is from first person perspective and it's all told from the point of view of the protagonist. I think for that kind of book, you really do have to be invested in the protagonist. If you don't click with her, if you don't think she's interesting, then you're going to struggle with the rest of the book. That's just that is a flaw of a very limited first person perspective. So and then like I said at the beginning, this is pitched as like Sorcery of Thorns for fans of Sorcery of Thorns, and Sorcery of Thorns is much better written, and Sorcery of Thorns has much better developed themes. So I think if you're a fan of that book, you might be disappointed in this book, to be frank. Okay, so yeah, those are my thoughts on Shielded. 2.5 stars, I think. It's like quality-wise 2 stars, and I tack on an extra half star because I was kind of entertained for the second half of it, but I can't objectively say it's like a well-written book. I'm like 0 for 2 on arcs, but I've got a few more to read before October, so we'll see how that goes. Let me know down below if you've read this book, if you have any thoughts about it. If you have any questions about it for like content or whatever, feel free to ask those. I will answer them to the best of my abilities. And yeah, like I said, I'll also leave some Goodreads. I'll leave a Goodreads link down below so you can read other people's reviews, because obviously this is just my opinion, and your mileage may vary. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.